Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to give you a full update and a look at Hurricane, soon to be Major Hurricane Helene, about to take aim and impact the areas of the Florida Panhandle and Gulf Coast, as well as the Southeast, and currently affecting the Yucatan Peninsula. So yeah, let's go right into it. So this video is solely based on Hurricane Helene, as it's a very major topic, and it deserves its full attention, so I will be back with other videos in the coming days, but for today, it's all about Helene and the people in danger because this could really be a very major storm. So, again, starting off with satellite imagery, how does it look? So, we have it kind of located just to the north and east of the Yucatan Peninsula, as you can see highlighted in this blue. Just to the north and east right here is kind of where the low is, kind of over here. Let's use black, kind of right over here. And we also have some pretty big convection blowing up in the southwestern side of the system, and overall looks very healthy. Okay, we have strong outflow up to the north, way up to the north actually, already affecting areas of Florida, causing some thunderstorms. Cuba also getting into some thunderstorms, but our really feisty convection is right around that core, right over here. Okay, it's a slightly more west lopsided, not too lopsided, but slightly more western base is where you see more convection than the east. However, nonetheless, again, it's a very strong system, healthy outflow, and it still is kind of dealing with some dry air coming into its eastern side. However, it is blocking it off pretty nicely with the very strong inner core and some big time strengthening, possibly even rapid intensification is very likely. And we will likely see the development of an eye somewhere in here as it continues strengthening and becomes a forecasted Category 3 hurricane, major hurricane. So, that is imagery. Getting on to conditions it's in right now. So, taking a look at shear, it's in very limited shear. There is a little bit, however, it's not dealing with anything too crazy. It was dealing with some pretty big shear from uh, tropical system John. It was a system off the coast of Mexico and landfall as a major hurricane causing catastrophic impacts. Thankfully, it has weakened pretty quickly and has actually gotten back offshore and is about to make a secondary landfall. Thankfully, its shear did actually kind of hinder development of Helene, but now that John's back offshore, Helene has much less shear and much more favorable environments. Now, moisture, you can see, has a very nice moist bubble. Again, some lack of precipitation, somewhat of a lack of moisture and dry air presence over here, kind of trying to fight into the core, and dry air on the northwestern side. However, besides that, it has a very nice, strong, moist core, and so that will help it strengthen quickly as it continues heading generally northeastward. Generally northward for now. So, sea surface temperatures, it's in very warm conditions too, okay? 31 Celsius, well into the 80s, very favorable. Now, as it does continue trekking somewhere kind of like that, heading north, then eventually northeast, we'll get into slightly cooler temperatures. However, it won't stop strengthening. It will maybe slow the pace, but won't slow it. It won't completely just stop strengthening. It's going to continue strengthening given its overall and very favorable conditions. Now, depending on the track, it could head farther out west. However, we're seeing more trends. Instead of having it kind of come out here, we're having it come a little more into like the armpit of the Florida Panhandle and the peninsula. Right here, we have even cooler waters. So, again, it could really slow strengthening by the time it's forecast to landfall, and we do see that as shear kind of increases. Dry air doesn't maintain as much of a problem, which is actually kind of interesting, as dry air has been the main limiting factor of these systems. However, these cooler waters kind of right in here, and then maybe just a little bit of shear out here, maybe some dry air, will cause a slowing of weakening right over here if it does decide to trek into the armpit right here. And it may even start to weaken just a bit, but shows rapid strengthening, I'd say, until it gets about here, where then it just slightly strengthens five or so miles per hour until landfalling, as right now forecasted again, Category 3 hurricane, major hurricane. So looking at some graphs and data, we see rapid intensification probabilities, which is one of the main things to look at. Our highest chance is 25 knots in 24 hours. That's around 30 to 35 mile per hour increase in a day. Okay, and that means by tomorrow evening, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, we will likely see a 30 to 35 mile per hour increase from right now. And right now we're sitting at an 85 mile per hour storm. So let's do some math. That would be right around borderline Category 3 hurricane by tomorrow evening. So rapid intensification also shows a Cat 3 likely, and even a pretty good chance of a 30 knot in 24 hours as well, which is also beyond that, even maintaining solid chances for 35 knots, which is up to 45 mile per hour increase. So rapid intensification, very, very likely. Now, storm environment information, heat content, as you can see, this is pretty underrated to look at, honestly. I think is really good. Heat content peaks kind of over here. So it's kind of my first time using it. I'm pretty sure this represents time right down here. We overall see peak conditions right in here, okay? Kind of around 18 hours or so, or 15 hours is where we kind of reach peak conditions, okay? Winds respond, in response we see around 120 to 125 knots peak, or 120 to 125 mile per hour major hurricane landfalling before it all starts weakening. So peak conditions kind of go here, and then response to those conditions happen slightly afterwards. Now, this is a better graph to look at, in my opinion. Shear stays low, winds increase, and we have moisture kind of starting to decrease, and sea surface temperature slightly decreasing. So this is my favorite to look at. Dry air does become less favorable as we continue. Shear becomes more favorable as we continue, and the cooling of waters causes it to be slightly less favorable. So we have two unfavorable things going against each other. Two things are going to go less favorable: the SSTs, sea surface temperatures, and the moisture. Okay, so that's sea surface temperatures, and then moisture. So relative humidity is also going to start to dry off a little bit. So those are two things. Shear, however, will support strengthening of the system as it continues to lower. At that point, that's when we kind of reach the peak winds in knots, and then this is miles per hour, this is knots, this is miles per hour, this is knots. Or actually, this one's a little different, but we reach peak kind of 24 hours, okay? In about a day, okay, around tomorrow evening, around 7, 8 p.m., we're going to be at peak before it rapidly starts to weaken. And when I mean rapidly, but at the same time, many models show it persisting in as a hurricane well into land. So that's something I have to watch as well. But that's some analysis in future conditions as Helene continues to be trekking northeastward. Track-wise, so tracks, we actually did have lots of models actually starting to bring it east. However, we have readjusted. Right now, a landfall around the Apalachicola area, or Apalachicola, or kind of around here near Tallahassee, just westward, is where we are expecting a landfall. Now, our cone is really starting to, and I'm actually kind of surprised with how much confidence we have. We have nice confidence that a landfall will happen right here. That will keep it in slightly more favorable conditions as the sea surface temperatures. However, there is shear again over here, as we do have an upper level system right here. Okay, and what that is causing is not only a little bit of shear, but also as it becomes to get inland, we actually have seen some models try to have it interact and actually have I forgot Fujiwara effect, where two cyclones are kind of messing around with each other and rotate around each other. Now, this upper level isn't actually a cyclone. However, it is an upper level wind pattern that can affect Helene in the future. Now, besides that, again, track northward, then slightly going northeastward, and landfalling, and eventually heading back westward, and then kind of curling. And some have it going out, most have it going into the Midwest. So that's tracks, and yeah. Now getting into some modeling. Starting out, we're really just gonna use the HAFS-B model as this represents my idea best. It is verifying kind of pretty right, 980, 978. And we see a rapid strengthening overnight tonight. A rapid strengthening overnight into tomorrow morning is where it's going to really rapidly strengthen. Okay, this is getting into the afternoon tomorrow. Okay, it starts to really start picking up and it starts to accelerate in forward speed. I mean, you can see by 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., it's moving very, very fast. Okay, matter of 3 hours, it's over here, and then as soon as you know it, about to make landfall. 930 millibars. Now, this is a stretch. I feel like it's not going to get that strong. I do think Cat 3, Cat 4 is on the horizon. Category 5, that's a stretch. Now, this shows max winds of 135 knots. That would be around a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane, okay? It's a very strong hurricane. Now, it does show landfall and rapid weakening. I mean, you're already at 64 knots by 11 p.m. So, main point with me talking and blabbering about all this, there's some things to take away. It's going to be moving very fast. And that's a good thing. Okay, that's a very good thing. As if it was moving any slower, it would be strengthening even more. Okay, but thankfully it is moving faster. And so that also means rapid weakening. And that means that we get strong impacts, however, it doesn't last as long, right? Not major, major, major flooding, not major, major, major wind damage, okay? It's still going to be very bad because this is going to be a major hurricane, not just some regular little tropical storm. So, and storm surge is still going to be as bad as it would be, as we're going to have up to 20 feet, okay, in this area. I'm putting it in pink, up to 20 feet of storm surge, which is record breaking almost, okay? We've only seen a handful of storms having 20 feet, only a couple, okay? And if this does verify to have an area that reaches 20 feet, that is very, very concerning. However, it does make it inland, and it does actually maintain strong Category 2 status, getting into Georgia. And then as it gets near Atlanta, still a hurricane, before finally still looks like a tropical storm hurricane, getting into Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois. And then it finally starts to weaken off. But this is kind of inaccurate. 987, 30 knots. It's not 30 knots isn't a hurricane, but it's tropical. I do think a tropical storm could very well persist, and maybe even into affecting areas of Atlanta, which is very interesting and something we'll have to watch out for. I feel like initial rapid weakening is possible, and then a slowing of that is likely. Now, National Hurricane Center. So, right now, this is the latest track as of 4 p.m. Wednesday Central Time. Gonna continue heading northeast for now, moving northward at 12 miles per hour, but that's only gonna accelerate. By tomorrow afternoon, 1 p.m., we have a major hurricane. Okay, by tomorrow afternoon, we will have a major hurricane according to the National Hurricane Center. Several things. Okay, everything is mentioned up right now. Tropical storm warnings for the entire coast of Florida, except this little area right here. Entire coast of Georgia and South Carolina. Hurricane watches, hurricane warnings, and tropical storm watches all up for the landfall areas. Cuba as well having hurricane watches and tropical storm warnings. And the Yucatan having hurricane warnings and tropical storm warnings. So that's your forecast track line. Take a look at it. Let's look at other stuff. Rainfall potential. We see a hotspot of 12 to 16 inches right at the landfall area. Like I said, just west, just south and west of Tallahassee, Apalachicola. Watch out, Apalachicola. Let me know how to pronounce it. I don't exactly know how, but I'm pretty sure that's the area that will likely have that landfall. But just westward of those two areas, Tallahassee and Apalachicola, right over here, 12 to 16 inches, whereas where that is the main landfall coming through. And then an enhancement of rain along the mountainous areas up to 20 to 30 inches in that pink. Okay, that might be a little overdone, I might say, but wouldn't be surprised. And depending on how far the northern fringe inflicts, we'll see that will determine the rainfall totals up into the Midwest. But for now, 2 to 4, widespread 1 to 2 to 2 to 4 inches is likely. Flash flooding potential, high risks, okay? High risks for day 1, day 2, and even day 3 maintaining a moderate risk. So flash flooding for areas of Tallahassee, Apalachicola, areas of mountainous regions over here in the Appalachians. And then if you look over here in the day 1, might be a little hard to see, but also a high risk for areas of Georgia and South Carolina. Peak surge, 15 to 20 feet is the highest you'll see. Suwannee River, Carabel, Apalachicola. There you have it. Apalachicola. Okay, so Apalachicola, Carabel, Suwannee River, and oh my goodness, Chassahowitzkaza as well. Okay, so all the way from Apalachicola to Chassahowitzka. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just trying to pronounce this as best as I can. But between those areas, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is likely, with up to 20 feet not out of the question, depending on where the landfall is. But again, landfall looking very likely kind of right in here. So I'd lean closer towards areas over here. Maybe possibly including Suwannee River. I would possibly dismiss these areas, maybe. This is the National Hurricane Center, so definitely want to pay attention here. And then outside of that, still very major. 6 to 10, 8 to 12, 5 to 8 feet is still very big, and 4 to 7 feet still very big. 1 to 3 feet, not as bad. But I'd say once you get over 3 to 5 feet, that's where it's really bad for a peak storm surge. And that's about it. You can view all the rest of the graphics at nhc.noaa.gov. And yeah, that is your National Hurricane Center update. Storm Prediction Center, we have a day 2 risk. That's because of Helene. 10% tornado risk, okay? That's very high. We're going to have to watch out. I haven't seen much people talking about it. But right off the coast of Georgia and areas of South Carolina and just north of Jacksonville, Florida, well north of Jacksonville, Florida, very, very high chance of tornadoes. Wind is also there as well. And then day 3 as well, marginal risk. Likely causing possibly some sort of tornado risk. As you see, this is kind of in this little curvature form, as Helene will be over here before heading in each of these directions. So that's our severe storm prediction center outlook as for Helene. National Weather Service, now getting into more of the alerts for local areas. Let's get around the kind of the areas of landfall. So here's one of the graphics we have. Tropical storm warnings have been added. Life-threatening, some significant storm surge, catastrophic wind damage, hurricane force winds likely, flash flooding, and moderate riverline flooding, all on the table. And I like this graph right here. It's not easy to zoom in, but if you can see right here, here maybe if I click, okay, no, it's not really showing that graphic. But right here, this is what represents the inland watches and warnings. So we have tropical storm watches all the way into North Carolina. Okay, all the way over here, whole state of Georgia in tropical related indices. 90% of Florida as well. 95% of the state in tropical storm warnings are above, and hurricane warnings for areas of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Okay, and so taking a closer look, Apalachicola, hurricane warning, Cross City on the border, Perry on the border. Taking a look at some other areas, we can take a look at some populated areas. Jacksonville, tropical storm warnings. Valdosta, tropical storm warnings. Gainesville, Florida, tropical storm warnings. Valdosta is actually in a hurricane warning. Sorry about that. And the storm surge warning is this pink. So Perry, Apalachicola was also actually in the storm surge warning, as some very historical storm surge is likely. And then we have over here, hurricane states, same as Atlanta, is under tropical storm warning, or tropical storm watch, which we're gonna have to watch out for. Actually, tropical storm warnings we'll have to watch out for. as it will maintain a strength getting into state. Whole state of South Carolina also in tropical storm warnings. Spartanburg, Greenville, Greenwood, Sumter, Columbia, Charlotte, Hickory, Asheville, that's North Carolina, but Gatlinburg, all in the areas of tropical storm indices. So overall, very, very populated area in the southeast we're watching out for. And even Alabama and areas outside are also having some hurricane local statements. So, hope you enjoyed. It was a long video, but power packed with information. Timestamps will certainly be below, so you can switch to the areas y'all want to hear about. But yeah, hope you guys liked that video. See you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and be sure to stay safe. Goodbye.